All right, so um, we've got some really interesting material here about art and technology. And, Hito Steyerl's work, it really jumped out at me. I mean, she's working with film and documentaries, even philosophy, all to kind of explore how technology, especially these digital images, they're everywhere, how that changes how we see the world and even ourselves.
Yeah, and it's not like she's just dipping her toes into the tech side of things. Hito Steyerl, she's a major voice in helping us wrap our heads around this world that's just saturated with images. And I think her background, filmmaking and a PhD in philosophy, that adds a whole other level to her work, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of levels, her essay, In Defense of the Poor Image, that title really got me thinking, what exactly is a poor image? It seems kind of contradictory when we're talking about art, right?
All right. It's a catchy title for sure. See, Steyerl's talking about those low-res images we see all over the internet, blurry phone pics, memes, compressed files, the works. But here's the thing. She's arguing that these images, even though they're not like crystal clear, visually speaking, they're actually incredibly democratic, subversive even.
Subversive. Hold on. Are you saying that a blurry photo of, say, a protest that gets shared a million times online that could be more powerful than a super polished news report? That's a very interesting way to look at it.
That's exactly what she's getting at. These poor images, they spread like wildfire, right? Remixed, recontextualized, they take on a life of their own, completely outside the control of, those traditional gatekeepers. And a great example of this is Steyerl's film, November.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that one.
Yeah.
How does it use poor images to tell the story?
Well, November weaves together all these different kinds of images. So you've got news footage right alongside home videos, and each one adds to this like really powerful narrative about Styles' friend who disappeared. It makes you rethink the whole idea of what makes an image valuable and, who gets to control the story being told.
It definitely makes you think about that question Steyerl asks. Are people hidden by too many images? Or do they become images themselves?
Yeah.
Especially now with this whole selfie culture, it feels really relevant.
It's a question that cuts right to the heart of her work, this whole idea of surveillance and how visible we are in the digital age. Have you by any chance seen her piece, How Not to Be Seen?
I haven't actually. Tell me about it.
It's wild, but in a good way. Steyerl creates this, she calls it a didactic.mov file. Basically, it's like a set of kind of funny instructions on how to disappear online. Like imagine a film that's presented as a digital file, almost like one of those how-to videos. She's playing with the format, drawing your attention to the very medium she's critiquing.
Interesting. So it's like she's making a comment on how technology makes us so visible, but at the same time, she's offering this, a humorous way to escape that visibility, right?
Exactly. It's funny, sure, but it also raises this really profound point about how much control we have over our digital image and how tricky it can be to manage, how visible you are online. It makes you wonder, have you ever felt overwhelmed by all the images out there? Or felt like you had to carefully manage like your online presence?
Yeah, for sure. It's like this constant thing, trying to manage how people see you in this digital world. And it actually makes me think about that material you sent on Christian Marclay's, what was it called? The Clock, right? Talking about a different way to experience time, a 24-hour video. And it's edited together so that every single minute in the film, it lines up with real time. Just that the whole concept is wild.
It's more than just the concept, though. I mean, the clock, it puts you right there in the moment. Like you're feeling every tick of the clock in the film because you know what's happening in the real world, too. It makes time like a physical sensation almost. And this might seem like a bit of a jump, but it actually connects with AI in some pretty surprising ways.
Okay, now you got to connect those dots for me.
Yeah.
How does a 24-hour video montage, how does that relate to artificial intelligence?
Well, think about how the clock, it makes you hyper aware of time passing, right? Now imagine AI doing that, but instead of film clips, it's using data. So every click you make, every purchase, even every email you send, AI sees those as moments in time, and it starts to see these hidden patterns in your behavior.
So it's like instead of curating film clips the way Markley did, AI is curating these data points from our lives.
Exactly. And in the same way, the clock kind of reflects our obsession with time as a culture, AI. It reflects something even deeper. It shows us the patterns in our behavior, the choices we make, even our mistakes. It's like AI is holding up this mirror to humanity.
Whoa, that's a powerful way to put it. So if AI is this mirror reflecting us back at ourselves, does that mean that free will is just an illusion? Are we all just like predictable patterns waiting to be analyzed?
That's the big question, isn't it? What does all of this tell us about free will? about whether we're predictable or not. Does AI just show us who we are? Or, and this is the scary part, could it actually influence who we become? These are things we really need to be thinking about, especially now as AI starts to play a bigger and bigger role in our lives.
It's definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And it makes you consider, like, the whole concept of time. As humans, we experience time in a linear way. It's always moving forward, leading us toward, well, on the clock. But that constant ticking is like this reminder of our own mortality.
Hmm.
But AI doesn't age or die. It just keeps processing, analyzing, learning. It never stops.
That's a really interesting tension you bring up. This idea of AI as this endless cycle, constantly learning and evolving. It clashes with our own, limited human experience. And the idea that AI could potentially outlive us, holding on to all this data about us, maybe even making decisions for future generations based on that data, it's a wild, kind of unsettling thought, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. It's almost like AI can become this, like, digital ghost of humanity. Sticking around long after we're gone. And you know what else kind of feels like a ghost? It's the whole conversation we've been having about AI and time. It makes me think about Hito Steyerl's work with found footage. Like in her films, the way she uses those like fragmented images to explore how we build our identities online. It's like we're living in this hall of mirrors and AI is reflecting these broken up versions of ourselves right back at us.
Wow, I love that connection. You're right. Both Marclay's The Clock, with all those little snippets of time, and the way AI breaks down our lives into these data points, they both speak to this idea of fragmentation, of things being shattered and pieced back together. And bringing in Steyerl, that's spot on. The way she uses found footage, like collaging these random images together, it's exactly how AI takes these little bits and pieces of our online lives and tries to make sense of them.
So we've got art and AI both kind of holding up this like fragmented mirror to our lives. Instead of seeing the whole picture, we just get these little pieces.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. And it makes you wonder, if both art and AI are showing us these broken reflections, then what does it even mean to be human in this digital world? Like, what happens when everything we do is being watched, analyzed, put back together in a different way?
It's a tough question, for sure. But isn't that what good art is supposed to do? Make us think critically about ourselves and the world around us, especially as technology keeps changing everything.
100%. And on that note, I have to say, if you haven't already, dive into Hito Steyerl's work. She makes you think, she's insightful, and honestly, a lot of her stuff is actually pretty funny. Oh, and if you ever get the chance to see Christian Marclay's The Clock, do it. It's an amazing experience.
I'm adding it to my list for sure. This whole deep dive has been really thought-provoking. Art, AI, time. It's a lot to wrap your head around, but that's kind of the point, right?
Exactly. The important thing is that we keep thinking critically, keep asking these questions, even as technology keeps moving forward.
Couldn't agree more. Sounds like the future's got a lot of interesting questions in store for us. And hey, maybe even some answers, if we look closely enough. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring those connections.